And I think what we'll do is just have a conversation. So whoever, wants to answer any of the questions that I have, it would be really wonderful. And if there's other things that you want to share, ask each other, do that. But when I was thinking about all of the work that you've done, and I'm always in awe about how strong and how powerful that is, that you've done all of those things. One of the original questions I had is, we talk about Indigenous dispute resolution, and those are very, what we call shamashtrut, like not our ways words, and dispute resolution. So what would you call this? Is it dispute resolution? Is it actually Indigenous dispute resolution? The other question that I have, and I heard it a lot in what you shared, is I believe jurisdiction starts with me as a mother, and me as an auntie, and me as a daughter, and so how is what you're doing building that family capacity, those family roles, reminding ourselves and really upholding those families and their roles to be the decision makers in their own families? And the other question that I had is, as we're doing this work with ourselves for our own people, there's tensions that come up that we may not have thought would come up. I've heard of things like nations or communities having jurisdictional disputes and kind of pulling families apart, like you made a comment about, I think it was a caregiver who is non-Indigenous, and you said, how are we going to look at this through our ways? So if you want to share anything about those questions, and how are you grappling with those tensions that are coming up? What are you thinking about in terms of the work that you're doing?
Well, a lot of the challenges, of course, come from the internal challenges we have as nations and as communities and as families. And that's the legacy of colonialism, is this culture of silence. And we confronted that through the justice trail that we took, which was not just looking at the creation stories, but looking, and from there, drawing on the monsters. And those are external forces that, we don't really have control over that, but we have to respond to them and face them. And so we really turned to, you talked about children having voice and advocacy. And that's really a fundamental view that the Nkakatma took, is that children are autonomous beings, they're sentient beings, they have autonomy. So looking at the children first to hear what they have to say, and if they didn't feel that they could speak, then having an auntie or an uncle or somebody who they are culturally connected to or should be culturally connected to help them in that circle. And we also did the same thing. We call them rounds, though. So we go around identifying first what the challenges, monsters are, and then confronting that together. And in that circle, inviting and assimilating all the external forces, as it were. So, for example, we had a situation where there was children that were from another province and another nation, and then also in Nkakatma, and we just asked the kids. They were registered in status in another province, but if you ask the kids, they'd say, "Well, we have been raised here, and we're not going anywhere." So, and listening to them, they're like, "We're going to stay in Nkakatma territory. We want to know our other family. We want you to find ways for us to connect with them." So then connecting with their community and saying, well, what ceremonies, what kind of events, what kind of things can we bring them to and restore those connections, because that will make this child's life richer, right? But at the same time, saying, okay, this family is confronting this situation, it's not safe in the home. And so actually moving the parents out and having the kids stay, and aunties and uncles moving in and nesting and taking that as like, well, this is the children's safe place. So removing that and saying, yes, we're going to help the parents heal. That can't always sometimes be in the same home, but we're not removing the children. We're not taking the children out of there. Another situation, and just reconnecting and finding the children who are out there. We came up with this idea. I think it was Ardith Wapetko at Elks Wacom. She's now Justice Welcome, but she was really our lead on all of the Wrapping Our Ways and this project. And coming up with the ideas, like some kids are so traumatized, they don't even know how to connect with you when you meet them for the first time, right? So they're that traumatized. So what ways can we start that process to open the doors and that welcoming for them? So there was something called the Chawachut, and it was a fitness program, and it happened everywhere. Like, I think it was, Ramona could say for sure, but there was like, I think 3 or 4 locations. Wherever there were Nk'Ka'tmith children, we found other Nk'Ka'tmith people and created like a fitness program so we could just come together. We'd work out, we'd do things. We did it in Chilliwack, and I think Ramona ran one up in the canyon. And I think there was one on the South Vancouver Island. And so it was just drawing those children in so that they could start that journey home and make those connections. So yeah, we had to confront a lot of issues, sexual abuse. And it was really the women who really stood up in one of the circles and said, listen, we know this is true. We know this is happening. We have to face it. We can't turn our minds and our eyes away from that. So let's just confront it, and let's get this family help and these children safe, and what would that look like? So then following that process and just going and going and going in that circle, the circle never ended. In some of those cases, I think we identified all sorts of people, all sorts of resource people, psychologists, therapists, treatment programs, everything. And for some of them, they'll just continue until there's a resolution. It doesn't end, right? Because we know that anything that happens now has a long-term impact, not just for that child as they become an adult, but for their children and their children. And we can see that. We know that. So just drawing on that.
Thank you for sharing that. I had a specific question, too, about the Eagle Women Tribunal. I know you shared about your C-92 journey, the amount of resources you had to develop your judicial system. But I wanted to know about the Eagle Women Tribunal. Like, what is the intent of that? What are some of the, what are the goals of that? What does that look like?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to acknowledge Councillor Jennifer Pelche and all the incredible work that her and others on our nation have done. And I see this from a lens of not only a band member, but also somebody who's worked in this area for a long time. When I came into this position, what I saw were those colonial concepts that were colored brown in order to make it seem as though it was Indigenous. And it did not have the respect that our tribunal required, as well as, more importantly, it's not about the tribunal. It's not about the people who created the tribunal. It's about the children. It's about the rights of those children. And so, you know, for both your presentation as well as yours, circles and that transformative piece, as well as that it's so integral to case management, and it's so integral to putting families on a healthy path. But for CAUSAS, what we're talking about, and this is what we're amending within our Mio-Pamatswin Act, is that what the tribunal's role is right now more programmatic, such as what you both have done. By the way, if we have any kids in Toronto or over, you guys are getting called, like just amazing programs, you know, because we all have to work together. And CAUSAS can't do it on our own. And so if we have a kid that needs, or a family that needs help in Toronto or in your territory, we need to have that networking and work together. But for us, when we look at law building, and that's what this conference is about, is breathing life into our own laws. Our laws are only as powerful as we make them. Otherwise, they're just on paper. How we enforce them, how we utilize them. And when we came in and looked at it, as we started looking at a successor agreement, is that the tribunal was made fancy, for bad luck, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but from a colonized approach about good little Indians, you have a certain aspect, but at the end of the day, you don't have any say and neither do the families, but at least you get to talk, But for us, what we're talking about is creating a tribunal that's part of a judicial system where it is about sovereignty and lawmaking as opposed to being an integral part of that case management. So I don't know if that answers that question.
Yeah, and we're done our time. But that was awesome.
Oh, and I just as one final comment that you had, is that one aspect that I think that we all have to remember, and I think that we do, especially those of us who work in this field, is that as Indigenous people, we have the inherent right to raise our children. We have the inherent right to determine what our families, our nations look like. And this is the way that we do it, using these vehicles, but never to lose sight of the fact that within those rights become the responsibilities. And it is never about our systems. It is only about what we have to do as mothers, as fathers, as the matriarchs, as the elected and community leaders to ensure that those laws, those program models, meet the needs of the kids and do not meet the needs, first and foremost, of the contribution agreements or the people that may benefit above and beyond the children. Yeah. And so always assert your right and to know we are the ones that Creator gave the responsibility to. Thank you.
Emma, thank you. What you just witnessed here was, and through this few days, is upholding those trade routes of wisdom sharing. And I just really am grateful for that and really honor your work and thankful for that. And these beautiful folks will be around and catch up with them and get more information. White?
Thank you. Round of applause for our panel. Thank you so much. Next, we are going to have we're not having a break, I guess. We're going right into our breakout sessions, number 3. So, yeah. Do you want to come up? Okay, hold on. Don't leave yet. Sorry, everybody, 1 second. We have a quick closing remark before we go for the breakout sessions. This will be 2 minutes.